Hello and welcome to the NDTV WEF debate coming to you from the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, there are lots of things you can say about India, but being dull is not one of them. And there has been all sorts of excitement around India in recent weeks and recent months. And here at Davos, over the last few years, India has tended to change in public perception and in conversations out here, from being the superpower in waiting and a country which is right up there with China to a country which is almost written off for the last couple of years. And now again there's a lot of interest. What exactly is happening in India and what perhaps are the changes that could happen after the election? So we've put together a panel the like of which I actually haven't seen discussing India in a long, long time. So each of them experts in different aspects of it. So we will get a sense by the time the next hour is over of what exactly is happening in India. I want to start off by welcoming the Finance Minister of India, Mr. Chidambaram. It's great to have you, sir, with us. Nikesh Arora of Google, Indian origin, but really been back there as well, going back, taking a look at it, and now as being part of one of the largest companies in the world, we'd be interested to get an international perspective from the business point of view. Sunil Mittal, one of India's best-known industrialists, so it's great to have you with us on this panel. Jeremy Bennett is the CEO of Nomura, who worked as a banker in India, actually, as a about, what is it, almost 20, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, you weren't meant to mention that, but thanks for that. Yeah.
Well, there you are. It's a couple of years in Kolkata, a couple of years in Mumbai. And Tom Friedman, arguably one of the best-known journalists in the world, Tom, if I can say that, but certainly one of the people who's been writing a lot about India. In The World is Flat, you set out a certain model for what was going to happen to India. That model was somewhat under question the last few years. We'll find out whether it's coming back or not. And of course, a great audience whom I will go to for questions as we go forward. But sir, can I just start off by jumping straight into it? Is this in some way for India, when you look at the outlook for India, is 2014 essentially going to be the year when the election happened and changed everything one way or the other? And I have to, at the risk of being, I have to say that there are some people who've been saying that the government has not been doing all that well for the last 2 or 3 years. And is the Congress now tottering a little bit? So are we going to have a new government a few months from now?
We will have a new government, but it could still be led by the same Congress party. Well, I don't think the government has been tottering. We've had our difficulties, but the last 18 months or so, we have squarely faced these difficulties. We have taken a number of steps to stabilize the economy. And what I hear from everyone I meet in Davos and elsewhere is that we have succeeded substantially in stabilizing the economy.
Succeeded in stabilizing the economy. Let me just get a sense of that as to where India is right now and then look forward a bit. Sunil, you want to comment on that? Has the economy been stabilized from where we were a year, 2 years ago, or not yet?
Well, I think the government has used all the tools at its command in terms of interventions to allay some of the fears that were building up in the last 8 to 10 months in particular. Rupee has steadied again from going as high as 67, 68, 69 back to 61-ish. So I would say the government is alive to the problems. The question is, do they have enough tools in their arsenal today in the next few months to sort of bring back the confidence of business people, entrepreneurs back, to invest into the areas which matters most? My own view is we give less credit to the government for what they've done. My own view is if you really look at the reform process, while we can say some of the issues got missed out, insurance, defense, FDI being a couple of them, I think it is not for the lack of the government's will to do it. They have tried everything possible to move that ahead. And the multi-brand retail FDI, aviation FDI, my own view is a lot of things have moved. We give them less credit. My own view is my own community is waiting perhaps for a clearer signal to start voting with their feet again in the market.
So the sense of despondency that there was, when you spoke to people in Indian industry, they used to say, well, we are starting to invest outside, there are too many policy flip-flops, we're not quite sure what's happening. It's, has that started to change? Or because you still hear those comments, you hear them all the time.
I wouldn't say it has changed. I'll be very honest here. People are still hedging their bets. And to my mind, that is the problem the government is facing. That the industry is not responding to the changes that the government is making on their side, the moves that they are making on their side. And I'm sure the finance minister must be sometimes feeling frustrated that he's moved a long way ahead to the demands of the industry, to the demands of the economy, and yet we perhaps don't respond.
Do you think you've done everything which you possibly could? Or some of those policy flip-flops that have worried people, tough taxation, retrospective tax, some of those issues which have been really on the agenda. Have you done all that you possibly could, you think?
We have done a lot, and those issues are no longer the major concerns of my interlocutors when I meet them. No one really talks about retrospective legislation. So one-off case, and we have laid out a path to resolve that case. I think if you look at the foreign investor, they have come into India in a big way in the last 12 months or so. In pharma, in telecommunications, they've come in a very big way. I agree that the Indian investor is still hedging his bets, especially the big industrial houses. But at the SME level and at the medium industries level, bankers tell me that the demand for credit is still very high. So investments are taking place. I think the despondency that was there a year ago has lifted. That's my sense. But you can ask the audience when their turn comes.
Okay, I will do just that. In fact, Varun, I'll start off by asking both of you that now. Nikesh?
Well, from our perspective, we've been very bullish on India from a long-term perspective. Young population, very technologically savvy, a population which is intellectually curious, is always wanting to innovate, wanting to do new things. So we find that it's a great market for us to put our services out there as well as to see business grow. As a foreign investor, as a company investing in India for the long term, we could do with some more certainty, as we'd love to see policies that are going to stay the same for a while so we can actually keep going and investing in the market. We'd love to see more investment in infrastructure because that actually helps not just our business, but we believe that helps the long-term growth rate for the market for the next 15 years. So from that perspective, we'd hope for some more continued change and most importantly, certainty.
So if I can interpret that a bit, are you saying that India is still not as easy a country to do business in as it should be?
It's a fair country to do business in. I think once in a while, it's hard to find the commitment in certain areas or some things change, and that's where we'd like more certainty. But from a doing business, there are much harder countries around the world to do business in, not India.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think you said superpower in waiting had come under question. I don't think there's any question about that. When I was in India, I think one of the wonderful things about India is it's a naturally self-critical country, and that's a trait that's incredibly valuable. I was there in 1987, 88, and everyone was, wondering whether anything would happen. And look at the place now; it's transformed. So I have no doubt about it. Our economists are talking about growth recovering. Yes, it could recover faster. There's always things that you could do better, but it's a fabulous place to invest.
So you're saying, interesting, that's an interesting point of view. So you're saying that Indians sometimes are more critical about their own country than the rest of the world would be?
Completely. I mean, I travel the world and I go to many countries that are in a far worse state than India, where, naturally people are massively optimistic. You come to India, talk to some people here, and they're all gloomy. It's not that bad.
I am now going to give Mr. Chidambaram a chance to blame the media for that. Mr. Chidambaram, it's the media's fault, right?
He's right. We tend to be self-critical. We tend to self-flagellate ourselves. Please remember that among the large economies of the world, India still remains one of the 5 countries which are growing at 5% and above. Every country has slowed down. China has slowed down from 9% to 7%. India has slowed down from 7.5% to 5%. But there are countries which have negative growth, countries which are in recession, countries which have registered 0.1% growth. This is part of the business cycle in the world. We must take the cycle as it is and try to find ways in which the cycle will turn. I believe it has turned in India. And the Global Economic Outlook put out yesterday says in calendar 2014, which is our financial year 2014-15, 9 months plus 3 months, India will grow at 6.2%. This is what I've been saying for the last year. that next year India will grow at over 6%. The year after that, we will grow at over 7%, and we will then reach our potential growth rate of 8%. So I don't see why people are gloomy. I think those who have too much money are gloomy. Those who have little money and who invest small amounts or do small businesses are not so gloomy.
Okay, I am going to come to the Aam Aadmi in just a couple of minutes. But Tom, if I could just come across you. All right, let's take the point. Perhaps there's too much self-criticism, too much self-flagellation. But the promise and the potential of India, because at the end of the day, you should be measuring India not against what others are doing, but what India's own potential is. And when you wrote The World is Flat, and that image and the vision you had of what India would eventually come to be, has it disappointed you to some sense?
Well, you never want to be just the cleanest dirty shirt. You want to be leading the parade, and so I'd be a little careful about those kind of comparisons. I remain hugely optimistic about India for a couple of reasons. First is the Moises Naim rule, which was coined here at Davos, that whichever country is up this year at Davos will be down next year. And that means that if you're down this year, you're going to have a great 2014. Okay. So
yes and no. The Davos has been down on India for the last 2 years. So we're still waiting for the.
Then for sure. Look, I think the thing to keep in mind is this: that I wrote The World is Flat because I like to look at the world starting with the plumbing. What's going on in terms of technology and innovation, because that really tells you what is possible. And the plumbing of the world really changed since I just wrote that book. I believe that when historians look back on the first decade of the 21st century and ask what was the most important thing to happen